My name is Trey Leonard. I'm the fire management officer for fire management. Tribal member. I've been the FMO or fire management officer since 2006. I actually started working here at fire management since 1988. I do have 4 kids. Oldest being 28, youngest being 17. So I did play sports after high school. I had an opportunity to try out for AA professional team, which was the Salem Angels, but I never did. I think I fell in love with fighting fire as soon as I started working here. So it's a passion of mine. I feel like it's not a job just because I have passion in it. So it's something I enjoy. It's a great challenge. Specifically for my position, because we are a high complexity program as far as fire management. The salary could range from, I think it's like 75,000 to maybe about 95,000 a year. But I think we're looking at an increase potentially for fiscal year 26, which starts in October. So we're going to be potentially bumping up to a new scale. So it could go up to as high as 112. So I went to school, so you got to have, well, it's different now. So when I first became an FMO, I had to go to school for biological science. So I had some college credits prior to, well, at the beginning of my career, I went to school and I got some college credits in biological science, which was in wildlife and fisheries. I didn't have enough credits prior to me being an FMO, so I had to go to school at UNLV. So I went to school for 2 years at UNLV to get additional credits, which was at least 24-hour credit hours of higher education. And UNLV was a area or institution that was available for me. The reason I chose this career, it actually started with my oldest brother. He was working on heliTAC here at fire management. And the story may be a little bit funny, but we were one of the only houses up in Greeley Heights when I was growing up. And he was on heliTAC. So he didn't have a ride home, but he was on a fire. So what happened is they dropped him off right in front of our house. So the helicopter landed, he got out, and he just came home after ending the shift that way. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world, right? It's just, oh, is this what firefighting is? You get a ride home after shift? But it really just caught my attention, and I think I was about 16. I actually wanted to fight fire when I was 17, but you have to be 18 to fight fire. At least, actually fight fire, and being in the field and actually on the fire line, you have to be 18. So we do have younger individuals on our camp crews, and you only have to be 16 to be on a camp crew. So those crews will actually just be in camp, and so they'll do kind of the logistical stuff, lunches, handing out supplies, that kind of stuff. So they're important too. But we do have 4 crews this year that I think majority of them are under 18. The purpose of my job is I'm actually the department head of fire management. So it's kind of a unique department. We are tribal employees, but we get our funding from BIA or from the feds. So we're actually what they call under public law 93638 contract program, and also we're self-governance. So that's just kind of an explanation of what the program's all about. But my position, I'm the department head, so we have 4 sections under fire management, which is plans, or not plans, but fuels, logistics, and operations, and then our finance. So I supervise what we would call assistant fire management officers. So, and they are subject matter experts in each of those sections, like logistics. That's Tony Holiday. He will deal with everything in dispatch, the detection, which is the lookouts, the warehouse, prevention, and our fleet program. And then Tana Frank is actually our finance administrative officer, and she just deals with all the administrative financial duties for fire management. And then Jeff Casey, who is our fuels manager, he deals with all the fuels component of fire management. So when we start looking at the proactive side of fire management, not just putting out fires, but what can we do, to reduce fuel loadings, because we have so much of a dense forest out there that we got to reduce the fuels. And if we can do that, it helps firefighters when it comes time to put the fire out. So if you don't do any fuels treatments and we do get fire out there, then sometimes we get into a situation where the fire flame lengths are just way too big for us to attack, right? So we want to do some proactive fuels treatments so we reduce the fuel loading. So if a fire gets into that environment, then actually the fires actually stays on the ground instead of jumping into the trees, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what the fuels program does. And then our operations individual is Jabbar Davis. So he's in charge of the hot shot crew, the engine crew, the heavy equipment. They're in tune, and so they help the fuel section. So when we do prescribed fire or any fuels projects, Jabbar's staff will go out there and help with the fuel section. But also with Jabbar, his main duties is suppression, actually putting the fires out. So, and then part of that too is the camp crews, like I talked about before. And so, and the other piece of it is making sure that I make sure that the department stays in compliance with policies, not only tribally, but through BIA. So we got to make sure that we comply with all policies, and that's very important too. The other piece that I am kind of charge of is we work with the Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife, the Park Service, Oregon Department of Forestry. So we have other cooperators that we deal with on an annual basis. So we'll meet with them and just kind of discuss potential fire season, what is that going to look like, or having joint projects. If it's with the Forest Service, we'll work with Mount Hood National Forest or Deschutes National Forest or Ochoco National Forest or even Bureau of Land Management. So we may do dual projects. If we see a need where somebody adjacent to us has an issue with heavy fuel loading, we can do a project, and that will help protect the reservation, our jurisdiction. A typical day, I would say what we call planned events and unplanned events. So kind of my daily duties when we don't have prescribed fire or wildland fire. I come into work, first of all, just check emails, make sure I catch up on all of that. Doing budget exercises, making sure everybody's complying. As far as the staff here, we do have 112 people that work under fire management. I'm making sure that they comply, they do what they're supposed to be doing. Normally our staff in the morning, they start at 8 and they'll come in and they'll do physical fitness. You got to make sure that they're physical fit, ready to go to fight fire. And then they'll get ready and then they'll go out to a project. I talked about before, a fuels treatment project. So they'll actually go out there and execute, those projects and try to get those projects done. And normally, you're going to have a meeting or two, in that day. So it's just trying to get prepared for usually it's 2 days prior to the day that you come into work, right? So you got to get prepared for that. And then just meeting with other disciplines with the natural resources to make sure that we're prepared as a tribe also. But when we have fires, like this one right here, the Butte Creek fire, kind of my day, what that will look like is we have a 0600 briefing. So we go and brief all the firefighters and they'll go out and make sure that they understand what they need to be doing, where they're going to be working at and that kind of stuff. And we come back and then we have a couple other meetings, other online meetings we got to do with the Northwest Coordination Center. We'll have IC calls throughout the Northwest. So we'll listen in on that. And then we have a cooperators meeting, which is at 10 o'clock in the morning. So the incident management team will actually invite other people, if it's tribal organization or if it's even outside. They'll come in and they'll have a call, so they have an opportunity to talk about some issues that they may have to deal with the incident management team, so they can get that taken care of. We have an evac meeting with the incident management team, so we will discuss evacuation levels for any incident or incidents on our jurisdiction. And then at 4 o'clock, we have what we call an agency administrator IC meeting. So we go meet with the team and the agency administrators, and we talk about specific issues at that 50,000 foot level on the incident. And then at 6 o'clock in the evening, we have a night briefing for the night shift people. And right after that, we have a planning meeting. I think that's at 6, 7 o'clock. So it's kind of a busy day. So normally I will probably work. It's kind of leveling out right now. So I probably get home about 9:30 to 10 o'clock every evening, starting 6 o'clock in the morning to about 10 at night. So some of the hard skills, as you grew up and you're in high school right now, right? So some of those important things that you may not think is important when you go to school, and it may not be the subject, but you can look at history, right? And like, why am I having to worry about U.S. history or whatever? It's not that content of that class, but if you can learn how to pull that content out in whatever job you're doing. So I really feel like, and I'm just giving you an example of history. So I need to know the history in the past of what happened here in Warm Springs, right? And I think that's very important. So when you talk about history, what I look like is what did our land base here on the reservation look like pre-European settlement? What did the forest look like? What did the rangeland look like, right? And so I think from that standpoint, history is very important. From a math standpoint, we're always dealing with numbers, from budgets to figuring out fire behavior. So there's a lot of things when it comes to math too. And, some of those technology skills of knowing about the computers, because today is a computer generated era, right? So understanding that technology when it comes to computers, because we're starting to get into more of understanding what technology can actually do for us. There's some interest from NASA of working with us and some of the tools that they have, with satellites and stuff like that, what can that provide us and how can that help us? We use drones. So that is something that's in the wildland fire world. So some of those soft skills is maybe going to some leadership courses, going to supervisor courses, and making sure that, you have a leader's intent, you have direction, you have principles, and you have standards, right? So from a leadership standpoint, that's very important for your staff and for the program. My favorite part of my job now, and it has changed over the years, like I told you before, I started in 1988. So I was on the heli-attack crew when I first started here. So basically I flew the fires on helicopters, and that was our job. And they let us off on the helicopters, and we just continued to fight fire. And then I was on the hotshot crew as assistant superintendent. So that was just another way of fighting fire. So we had 20 people. We drove to the fire and then walked in, and instead of just 2 people on heli-attack, we had 20 people. So those early years for me was just that challenge, and being able to, put out fires from the ground or from the air or whatever the case was. And that's why I think I really loved the job, was because it was a challenge. It was really hard work. You were going to get dirty. And so the challenges throughout my career, I think, was something that was really important to me, that I felt like I needed to be challenged all the time. It didn't matter what level I was at. If it was being a firefighter or mid-level supervisor or the department head, there was always a challenge, And my job today is a little bit different, because there's social, political, economic world I have to be involved with. So that's a challenge for me, right? Having to deal with executives and whatnot, and having to make some of these bigger decisions. It's just a different kind of challenge. It's making decisions behind closed doors, to maybe help streamline the process for our folks in the field. So making decisions so it does not impact them, right? So if that makes sense. As you get older, your least favorite sometimes is having to wake up early. When you're younger, it was pretty easy. Today it's like, oh my, I gotta wake up at 4:30 or 4:30 in the morning, right, to get ready for work. And it's just a different challenge being at this administrative level, right? When I was actually on the fire line, working 16 to 18 hours a day, back then I was younger, more in shape. I didn't think that was too much for me. But as I got into an administrative role, I think mentally being drained sometimes is really tough for me. I feel like it's harder mentally being drained than physically being drained. So that's one of the downfalls, I guess, as being an administrator. Somebody that wants my job, I think I promote that. And if you're not promoting that, or you don't have a successional plan in place, especially in my line fire, if you don't have successional planning, that's going to hurt the department, right? So you always have to identify somebody to mentor, somebody that wants your position, right? Because I'm not going to be here forever, right? So I want to give that person or people that opportunity to train and get that experience at my level. I think education is valuable. If they can get education while they're younger, that will just help them. And then just from my point of view, how I kind of evaluate is if we have meetings or trainings, and this is just my personal opinion, I take interest in people that ask questions or make comments. Because how I view it is if I don't know what you know, then it's really hard for me to evaluate somebody, if that makes sense. If you stay quiet as an individual, especially in this line of work, it could be a little bit dangerous, but also in a classroom setting or a meeting setting, I just want to know what they know, and that helps me promote that individual or individuals, if that makes sense. The steps we have for wildland fire is, first, we're going to get notified. In the last couple of years, we do have 3 detection cameras here on the reservation. So it's new technology. It's called Pano AI. So actually, the camera will actually detect and determine between smoke, dust, clouds, fog, whatever. So it's really a new technology when it comes to detection of fires. So that it really helps us out quite a bit is the camera's usage and how we detect. The other way we do is, through law enforcement dispatch, they'll do a tone out if there's a wildland fire, and that's another way we get notified, or a direct call to our dispatch center. So once we get that notification of potential smoke in the air, we will send resources out, and usually it's going to be what we call initial attack. So those are going to be our engine crew or our fuels crew. And so that's the big thing, is being notified, the location, the time, all that kind of stuff. And then we'll send resources out. They will give a size up of the fire. So they'll call back to dispatch and they'll say, hey, here's the location, here's the GPS point, here's what the fire's doing, that kind of stuff. Do we need additional resources, or can we handle it with what we got? Like this incident right here, the Butte Creek fire, it got pretty large, pretty quick, pretty fast, right? So we had to empty the barn, which is sending all our resources out to that one fire. But if it gets out of our capacity, then we'll call in other people from Central Oregon or through Mount Hood, and they'll come in and help us. Now, if it gets away from all of those resources, then we'll look at calling an incident management team, and they'll actually come in and they'll manage the fire for us. And there's like 90 people. But we also use air resources too, helicopters and airplanes to drop retardant or bucket drops on the fire. So what we want to see is it's kind of a complex situation, right? So we want to put out the fires as small as we can. But when you look at things historically and what our ancestors did here, and how they used fire on our landscape, it could be a little complicated, but I think it's education for the tribal membership, the ones who have vested interest in what we do here, because they're the ones who are, they got ownership within this land base when it comes to any of the land here in our reservation, right? So it gets back to the proactive side. If we could do a project proactively, that minimizes suppression response, right? So I think over 100 years now that we've been doing suppression, we really just got too good at it. So historically, before pre-European settlement, our ancestors used to go out there and burn, and they used to burn in the summertime too. So they actually controlled what was out there as far as fuel loading in the forest, on the rangeland, which had a domino effect of, what it did for the landscape, what it did for the animals, what it did for the rivers and the fish and all that. It actually helped everything. But I think that was something that was important. But on the suppression side of stuff, I can get on my soapbox here forever, right? But that's kind of a day. We'll go out, and if we can catch the fire, that's awesome. If we have to expand to a bigger incident management team, they will manage the fire for us, and they'll actually take that fire and manage it, and then we still have the rest of the reservation that we have to worry about. So that kind of helps us so we can bring our folks back to get ready for additional fires.